Hey there, welcome to Concept Hunter. Today we're going to talk about Constellation, Sandamit's second game. It doesn't do anything super unique that you haven't seen before, but seeing a mechanic like this, just taking in a different perspective and in a different point of view, is always nice. We're not going to talk about that, however, today. What I want to focus on today is actually the representation of that mechanic, namely the tutorial of the game, and how does a player learn your mechanics. It is done here quite poorly, and sadly falls into quite a lot of standard traps that you can see quite a lot, and we're going to try and go through as many as possible today, and not actually talk about the actual gameplay. So let's get started by pressing Start New Game. And already we're bombarded with a ton of information on the screen, but the main focus comes down to the text box in the middle. And you could already note that there are 13 of them, which already should give you a couple of flashing warning signs, because that's a lot of information for the player to retain before even playing your game. And I can assure you that the grand majority of this information will not be retained by the player, for the simple fact that they don't understand what you're referring to, and they need to test it out with their hands. Some people might be able to retain all that information, but the grand majority simply will not. We're going to go through each and every one of these 13 clauses, which will take us quite a bit of time, but there are so many different types of problems here that I believe it is very, very worthwhile to do such an exercise. So, let's get started. Navigate black holes, white holes, and wormholes to connect stars and build constellations. Already, you can divvy up this sentence into 3 different, let's call them levels. A level that introduces black holes, a level that introduces white holes, and a level that introduces wormholes. Once you get to see the actual game, and we have a long time before we get there, you'll see that levels could actually be very, very quick and introduce each one of these in, let's say, 10-second levels, and then I know all of them because I've tried them and I understood them immediately, instead of throwing all of them at me at the same time, which is a little bit too much. We do get a little bit of the gold. The point is to build constellations, but I don't know how to do that. I don't really understand what it means, and by the end of it, I really won't be able to retain this information. Use your cursor to aim, click anywhere to shoot a ray of light from your current star. Okay, what you haven't told me is that shooting a ray of light to another planet will connect these 2 planets into a constellation. That is actually how the game is played. That is actually what I'm supposed to do. That is actually the goal. And it was not clear enough in this very first text box that you've told me. So that's number 1. Let's move on. Rays of light can only travel so far before they fade away. So sad. Let's focus on the 2 last words, so sad. One thing that a lot of games do that I really dislike is combine the tutorial, the raw press space to jump, with some kind of feeling from the designer to the game, some kind of narrative, some kind of story. It is very difficult to put both of these things perfectly together, and it is highly recommended to simply separate strict tutorial to how you feel about the game and the narrative and what it means for the game. And in here, where I didn't even play your game at all, this so sad can only either give me completely neutral emotions and feelings or negative ones. You might feel positive towards it. You might have a connection to your game. I don't at all. I haven't even played it. So that so sad can only kind of either I don't care about it or pisses me off. It doesn't mean anything. I don't feel anything because of it. And that's why that separation is important, especially in this case. You may force a ray of light to fade away early by clicking anywhere or by pressing space while it is in transit. I may do something in 2 different ways, and I don't know what that thing means. I have no clue what forcing a ray of light to fade away early means. What are the implications for the game? I haven't played the game. I don't know what shooting a ray of light means at all. So having it fade away early, I don't know, but I already have 2 ways of doing that. Sometimes it is best, I mean, we want more controls, we want more inputs, but sometimes it's best to just tell me one way, and then after I do it, maybe tell me, by the way, you could also do this in a different way. Or maybe it has a good place in an options menu for controls. But this is, I don't know what that means, and then I have more than one ways of doing that. Not very helpful information. Next, The star map button, top left corner, allows you to view all constellations and track your progress. I'm not entirely sure what progress means. In the first one, you did tell me that I need to build constellations, but I might not retain that information. I still don't really feel your game. I don't understand it. So this might mean, when you say progress, I don't know what that progress means. Maybe. And to view all constellations, the star map button, I still don't really understand what a constellation is. And this feels like something that might want to come in a little bit later. And the weird part is that it does. It does actually come in later. So we'll actually be back to this text box a little bit later on. Let's press next. Pan your viewport by clicking and dragging anywhere on the screen. So now we have a couple of text boxes that just show us how to actually move around in the environment. This is a good thing. All three of the next, I believe it's 3 text boxes that say exactly the same, well, not exactly the same thing, but in the same vein. They tell me how to interact with the actual star map. This is useful information, but maybe it's places after I've actually played your game a little bit and understand the basics of it, and then you could show me, oh, I can actually, there's more to everywhere around me. And that's pan your viewport by clicking and dragging. This is just strict useful information. Press R to move your currently active star to the center of your viewport. That's kind of useful, though I don't entirely understand what that means, having an active star. And next, you may zoom in and zoom out by clicking plus and minus either here or on your keyboard. That's also a nice feature, but I don't really understand its usefulness. I don't really feel it at all at this point because I haven't played your game yet. Next, the screen size button allows you to adjust the game resolution for better viewing on larger monitors. This is a wonderful option to have, but it's just that. It's an option. It's not part of the actual gameplay. It shouldn't be in the tutorial. It should be in an options menu. I am not entirely certain. I do not remember if the main menu screen has an options menu, but it should have. That should be an option in there, because this is an option that is not the actual gameplay. It doesn't need to be in the tutorial. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Next, you can view these messages anytime by clicking help/tips button. This is usually the last message you see, because it tells you that all the information that you totally didn't manage to retain because I just threw a ton at you, you could actually access it at any time. This is a useful text message, but you usually put it at the end because once everything, you're supposed to be able to contain everything, you obviously don't. So if you missed anything, you want to go back to it, you can see it. This message belongs in the end. And by the way, if we're already on here, we can see that there is actually information on the screen itself, such as the controls right here. If those controls are there, why do I need the tutorial if you put information on the screen as well? This entire section might just not need to be here at all and only be in the help/tips section, which is right here. So in case I don't know what I'm doing and I want additional information, I could press it. So that's another thought. Maybe you just don't need any of this at all because you have information on the screen. Next, the crosshair shows the location of your last shot. Use the arrow keys or WASD keys to adjust the crosshair and press space or E to shoot again. A lot of controls. That's usually a good thing, not in this case because I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm going to assume the crosshair is this because that's a crosshair and I can do left and right. Oh wait, no, I just did that and that actually moved the tutorial, which is not really what I wanted to do. I don't know what the crosshair means. I don't understand what do you mean by shooting again? I haven't shot even a first time, so this information is not really helpful to me. Let's press next. Once you get close to the target, adjusting the crosshair with the keyboard is much easier than trying to aim with your mouse. I don't understand what that means. I don't know how that helps. I guess this is a very useful thing to have in the game, but this is more of a tip than an actual tutorial. This is strictly a tip. It's a better way to use the controls that you've given me, and I can't feel that at all. I don't understand it at all, because I haven't played your game yet. The red trails aren't just for show. I don't know what... there's no red trails right now. I don't have any idea what red trails are. Use them to determine the effects of gravity. Compare them to gauge your effectiveness of your adjustments. Every single word here flies above my head. Flows and flies above my head because I have not played your game yet, and I don't know what red trails are whatsoever. Next, a Cyan line appears when you connect 2 stars in a constellation. Okay, so I'm supposed to connect stars in a constellation. Gray lines indicate unconnected stars. Connect them. Okay, you finally actually given me an action. You finally gave me a command what I'm supposed to do in the game. You kind of gave it to me in the beginning, but I don't entirely understood that because you didn't explain how I'm supposed to do it. So now I am supposed to connect stars, and I do that. There's a kind line that appears when I connect them. Okay, that helps a little bit, but not entirely. It's still rather convoluted. You may regain control of any active star by clicking on it. I don't know what an active star means at all. Now, we're going to close this and actually play the game, and you'll see that it is not a very complicated game. It really is not. You can just aim and you can click, and when you click, a beam of light comes out, and it is affected by all of these things. Black holes attract the light, white holes repel the light, and wormholes actually teleport the light. You've seen these mechanics before, but why did I have to get so much information just thrown at me instantly? And what are the things, if you remember, that I told you to try and recall, the third text box, once we finish this constellation, we get a 14th text box. Now that you've completed your first constellation, check out the star map to help you locate the remaining constellations. You've said this before, but it was out of place. You said that over here. The star map button allows you to view all constellations, track your progress. It makes a lot more sense now, in the end, once I've done that. And now it's also a good time to actually tell me to move around with the mouse to see other places. And if I take a look at the star map, you'll see that there's a bunch of constellations, and really what you're supposed to do is just shoot around and connect everything as best you can. The concept of the game is really nice. The presentation, though, is a little bit problematic. The tutorial, how to explain all of this information to the player. And there are a couple of other issues with it, which we won't go into in great detail. If I want to just go back, and sometimes it shoots out, if I'll just shoot out a random beam of light, it's kind of, okay, I want to shoot, and sometimes it just goes off, continues, and if I want to go back, it takes a little bit of time until it actually readjusts. These things kind of hinder your progress, especially when you're making, oh, that didn't work, I just want to adjust it a little bit and then go again. This is another, streamlining that process of, I missed, I want to go back in, as fast as possible will allow players to play your game a lot faster and enjoy it a lot more instead of getting stuck all the time. But really what we focused on today is the tutorial itself. There's a lot of work here, but I hope with all of this information, you could try and conceptualize the process of just sitting down with someone who has no idea what your game is about and what their first time experience is. That's really what you have to keep in mind while you're designing your tutorial and your exposition in a way. And it is not done very well here. And this is Constellation by Sandammit, and hopefully next time will be a lot better. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.